It's time now for the award-winning #1 local talk show in Northeast Pennsylvania, The Sam Lesante Show. Now here's your host, Sam Lesante.
Well, welcome everyone to our pre-election show. This is a show we hopefully give you some information on what's going on, then you decide. Remember, I've said this many, many times, please check and see who you're voting for, know all the things about him, okay? Joining me today, of course, is Rick Morelli. Rick has been on the show all the time. He was a past chairman of the Luzerne County Council. My friend Charles McAwee is on assignment in Washington, D.C., as well as Michael DeCosmo, who is also on assignment. So joining us also is Jerry Knowles. You remember Jerry, former state rep from the 124th District. Jerry was a cop for 7 years. He was on the Borough Council for 8 years. He was the mayor of Tamaqua for 6 years. He was a county commissioner for 6 years, and served in the state legislature for 12 years, or 14 years. You think he knows a little bit about the government? Jerry's nice to have you.
Many people said I couldn't hold the job.
You couldn't hold the job, yeah. It's so nice to have you on the show.
It's always good to be with you, Sam.
And of course, Rick, it's nice to see you as always.
Good to see you, Sam.
You've been up to a lot of great things. You know, when we do this show, Jerry, we try to let people think about the importance of elections. Okay, we had a show where we were doing a pre-election show with the U.S. Congressman Muser and Cartwright and Ron Bresnahan. Is it Bresnahan? And he's running against Cartwright. But we wanted to bring people on the federal level. Now I'd like to talk about the local level, and one of the people who's been very much concerned about local politicians is former U.S. Congressman Lou Barletta, and we have Lou on the phone. Lou, how are you?
I'm good, Sam. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for coming on to give us an education. Lou, before we get to Jerry and Rick, you've been really pushing the local elections and the importance of it, correct?
I have, Sam. You know, I had the great honor of serving the people of Hazleton as a city councilman and then as a mayor for 10 years, and also worked in Washington, you know, in the Congress. So I got to see government from the local level and from the federal level, and I could tell you that my heart is really in local government, because I think they affect people on a day-to-day basis more than folks in Washington. You know, many people would be hard-pressed to tell us what they're doing in Washington. But, you know, when you look at home, we have taxes and we have infrastructure, we have crime, we want safe neighborhoods, and those local elected officials can really impact our daily lives.
You know, when you look at what's happening in the local elections and how it affects our lives, it really has an impact. And sometimes people turn around and say, oh my God, how come this is happening? Why is this? Why is that? And there's always these hidden agendas that the average voter does not know is out there. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, there's no question about it. You know, people, they don't get the opportunity to see behind the curtains and see and basically see how the sausage is made. But you know, it's we have to make sure we elect good people. If we want good schools, let's not elect knuckleheads to the school board. A township supervisor, a mayor, they can all impact us very, very much in our lives and where we live. And so I think we have to really take a good hard look at who's running for these offices. Let's not just go in blindly and pick somebody either because of their party or because of you like their name or you knew somebody who knew them. Know the person and know what they stand for and go in there educated.
What do you tell, now that you've been going throughout the state and endorsing various people, particularly in the local level. What do you tell the viewer, the voter out there? Because, you know, when I'm up here at the Laurel Mall, and when I go and I talk to seniors up here, they just shake their head, Lou. They don't believe what's going on in the country. It's, you know, like radicals are taking over. You have girls going with boys in gyms, and then you have this coot situation, which I'm going to talk to you about. You know, you just wonder why, and they scratch their heads and say, how does this happen?
Yeah, it's funny, but it's not funny. You know, I just had a call last night from someone I knew, and he asked me why I endorsed a certain person, and tell me why. And you know, I talked to him and told him why, and he said, when we got done, he said, you could tell that person they got 2 more votes. You know, day before that, Sam, I was on the phone actually taking care of some insurance business that I needed to take care of, and you know, the woman on the phone said to me, you know, I wish you would run for office again. She said, my husband is in the nursing home. You know, I had to move, I had to sell my house so I could take care of him. I'm living in a small apartment that I don't like. I can't afford my food. And then people are coming into the country illegally and they're giving them everything. What about us? And you know, it's sad to hear that, Sam, because she was, you know, an elderly woman who, you know, wishes she could retire, but, you know, she had to sell what she owns and can't afford, you know, the food and to take care of themselves. And it's sad. It's very sad.
You know, that's only one of thousands of stories that you hear, Lou, about what's happening in the country today. And you wonder why it's continuing on. And you wonder why, you know, people see this. And, you know, it's just like, I can't make any sense out of it, Lou. I mean, I've been doing over 6,000 of these shows. I've met so many great people and a lot of phonies, you know, especially you and I have had these private conversations many times of the phonies that you have. And they just have that way to convince people that even though the country is going down the tubes, they have that way of saying, you know, vote for me, and they put them back in office. Why does that happen, Lou?
Well, because they have all the talking points, Sam, and they know what to say. They know what people want to hear. But the problem is that very seldom do they actually spearhead or make it a priority to make sure that what they promise people, that they actually do something about it. And you know, it makes me shake my head because, you know, you and I mean, we lived through it. My time as mayor, when I stood up against illegal immigration, Sam, I was called every name in the book: a racist, anti-immigrant.
Yeah, right.
He's chasing people out of Hazleton. I remember running against Paul Kanjorski. They called me a one-trick pony because, you know, I said how it affects our hospitals, our schools, and our crime. And all the things I said 20 years ago, if you turn on the news tonight, you know, these elected officials are all saying the same thing. Why the heck didn't they do anything about it when you know, we tried to do it in Hazleton and we were condemned for it? You know, now even Democrat cities like New York are seeing the effects of what illegal immigration does to their communities and to the people there.
It's a shame what they try to do for votes. But let me talk about this couth. Because we had, as you know, Mike Cabell on the show, which was a paid show, incidentally. Mike there's flyers out there accusing Mike of selling out the children and access to mental health services without supervision. So the left can push their agenda, and boy, they certainly are trying to push their agenda. And you came out and you endorsed Mike Cabell. And Mike, one of his flyers says, Cabell stands strong against couth. Why this major controversy? I got a call yesterday, and the person says, Sam, you realize what this couth is, and that, you know, Mike's on the board and all this stuff. And well, I said, the first thing is, I don't think Congressman Barletta would endorse anyone, particularly that you were so strong against this couth. Could you give us a little scenario on that, Lou?
Yeah. So to be honest, you know, when I first heard that Jamie Walsh was challenging Mike Cabell, I was surprised by it because it seemed like both of them had similar Republican agendas. You know, they were pretty similar on good Republican values. So I wanted to know why Walsh was going to run against Cabell. So I actually sat down and talked with him. And to be truthful, Sam, it was there where I really learned about Couth. Jamie Walsh had come out against it, and with the concerned parents, the group that he's with, and they shined a light on what this Couth is, and it basically eliminates parents from parents' rights in dealing with their children and having strangers talking to children about their gender and things that shouldn't happen without a parent knowing about it. And he had said that Mike was supportive of it, which he was at the time. And so I came out openly against Couth and basically said I didn't care if they were Republican. I want this out of our schools, and no Republican should be supporting this. This eliminates parental rights, and it's everything that we talk about that we don't want happening with our children. And I actually then sat down and had a talk with Mike Cabell about it, and he had told me, and he was very, very honest, and said, listen, when Couth came in and talked to them, he felt they misrepresented themselves and what they were, what they thought they were, and what they thought they were going to do. And it wasn't really basically until I came out that Mike took a look, and the things that I was saying were true. You know, that there weren't safeguards in there, and many of the things that he did not think was happening was, and decided that he was going to actually do something about it. He co-sponsored a number of bills now that would basically give parental rights back to their children. I still, at that point, wasn't going to get involved in the primary, but I really didn't like the negative. I didn't like the negative turn of that campaign of what happened, the attacks, the negative attacks. And Sam, I think this is a serious problem in the Republican Party right now, where the Republican Party cannot be divided. Luzerne County will be critical in electing the next president. We worked very hard in getting the registration for Republicans very, very close to the Democrats. And you could say that Luzerne County has turned a bit red over the last 10 years. But if you divide that party in half and start attacking each other, you're just handing these elections back over to the Democrats. I don't think Republicans should be attacking Republicans. I've been in primaries before. The governor's race, we had how many candidates in there? 9 candidates in there. You know, I didn't attack other people. I don't think Republicans should do that. And I didn't like what's happening in that race as far as the negative campaign that's being run right now.
Well, that's the thing that, sometimes you wonder how sometimes they infiltrate. I got to tell you, Lou, the DNC, the Democrat National Committee, I got to hand it to them for their PR. I mean, they must have the best PR propaganda. I'm talking about the DNC. There's a lot of great Democrats out there that are moderates, that are pro-life, but the DNC, boy, I'll tell you, they're amazing. They're amazing.
Yeah, it's really something. I think again in this local race, and again, I think Jamie Walsh is a good person. I don't think he's a bad person, and I think down the road he can have a role to play. But in this election, I supported Mike Cabell.
I know how sad it is when I go. If I'm in Boyer's supermarket, grocery store, and these people come up to me and they say, "Sam, this is a shame. Look at the prices of this. Look at the prices of that. We can't afford this." But yet there's people come in here, and God, we want to help as much as we can, but they just give him away just for votes. It's so very sad. And hopefully,
Sam, we have veterans sleeping under bridges in America.
Yeah.
I mean, let's start right there.
Yep, it's sad. Well, listen, I wish you the best. How's the family? Okay, how's your grandson?
They're good. Thank God he's doing good. I will continue to pray for him. He's 7.
Yeah.
He's 7 years old now, and it's prayer. The power of prayer has really been a blessing for him.
Yes, it's a shame more people don't understand what the power of prayer is all about. Lou, nice talking with you.
Thank you, Sam.
Okay, we're going to take a break. We'll be back, and we'll talk to the panelists here, Jerry Knowles and Rick Morelli. I assure you they have a lot to say. We'll be back right after this. Well, welcome back to our pre-election informational show, my friends. Remember, 24/7 SSPTV.com. You can watch all of our shows. Joining me is Rick Morelli, who is the past chairman of the Luzerne County Council. He's also serving on the election board, and also former state representative Jerry Knowles is here. Jerry, looking at, when you were in the state legislature for 14 years, you had to be doing something right. And educating people, what do you tell the voters? What should they be looking for?
Well, I tell the voters that they have to take the time to do research on candidates. And it's so difficult with all as the congressman had talked about, the flyers and the negative stuff that goes out there.
Well, you saw that when you were in there for 14 years, okay? And looking at, the quality of state did you see a variety of changes from the Pittsburgh people, the Philadelphia people, the rural people,
It's so much different than it was. I mean, I always use Neil Goodman, who was the representative from the Monterey City area. And I don't think I worked with anybody closer or more than I did with Neil. And I really believe that Dave Argle's up in this area now, and I can only speak for Schuylkill. And when Dave was there, we just had a great working relationship, and that included Tim Holden, a Democrat. It included Neil Goodman, a Republican or a Democrat, and then all of the other Republicans. We worked well together. A Democrat in Schuylkill County is much different than a Democrat in the city of Philadelphia or in the collar counties around Philadelphia. Yep. There's a lot of crazies out there.
Yeah, and they're in office.
Well, and I got to tell you, they're not only on one side.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Rick.
Well, first of all, I just want to say it's an honor for me to be here with Jerry. Growing up with my father being a supervisor at Klein Township, his name came up many times, and as he mentioned before, of his resume and all the years in office and the service he's done in Schuylkill County. I've known him very much and have a lot of respect. And again, here's a guy who knows a lot about local government. And the first thing that hit that he just mentioned that's important, he mentioned Tim Holden, and I got to know Tim years ago, and Tim was a Democrat. And he was a guy who worked with Republicans, and he wasn't your typical Democrat. And the point there is that, when you have Republicans and Democrats working together, and, no one's always going to agree on things, but come together for the better of their community, that's when things get done. And again, proud to be someone who grew up in Schuylkill County, because we've seen a lot of that, and those are the individuals. But going back to your point of elections, I mean, this is a election where the truth is the most important election that everyone's going to be paying attention to is the presidential, but that's really in the general. Here you got some local elections. You spoke before about Cabell and Walsh going against each other. You have the Government Study Commission that's on there in Luzerne County, and then you have some other really not that exciting elections here. This is probably going to be one of the most simplest elections that we're going to see, as compared to November, which is going to be crazy, and that's a whole nother topic, talking about what's going on the national level. But when we get into the local levels, we're talking state reps, which what could impact us here on the state of Pennsylvania. Jerry could talk more about that than I can. Again, you talk about the study commission, what that means with the government. So those are the things that people have to pay attention to, have to understand what those candidates about, and they have to do their homework and on the issues as well as the candidates. And I think that's the key. It's not just the candidate, but what are the issues? I think it's fair to say that when you talk to most people, when it comes to state representatives and their bills and all that, most people don't know about that. I think that's a very fair comment. But I think if you dig deeper into what they vote for, where they stand, it'd be a lot easier to vote for those individuals.
Looking at the districts here, Rick, in the 116th, you have Dane Wacho, who doesn't have any opposition in the primary.
Yep. I mean, Dane is obviously a former mayor of McAdoo. He's someone who's he's a veteran. He's been involved. He's, I guess, still considered a freshman out there as a state representative. But I can just say that from opening up the newspaper, I think if you open up the Standard Speaker and you don't see Dane's picture, and there's something wrong. I mean, here's a guy who's been out there every day. He's hustling, doing the things. And again, I think Jerry knows this. If you go out there and you touch the community and you're going to do things, that's the job you're supposed to do, and you'll be successful doing it. I think Tara Toohill was someone who did that as well, and she was successful. So in that position, that's what you have to do, and I'm not really surprised that he doesn't have any opposition.
Jerry, you saw, you were for 14 years, okay? So there's no question that if they didn't think you were doing the job representing your constituents, they would have never, voted you back in. And how did you put your finger on the pulse of your constituents of what they needed?
Well, I think that I was very fortunate. I certainly come from very humble means, and I grew up in Tamaqua, which is a strong part of the base. The Tamaqua School District area is a strong part of the base for the 124th. But, you got to get out there and knock on doors, and you got to get out there and, these negative flyers that the congressman talked to. I mean, when you're in Harrisburg or when you're in Washington, you're going to vote on a good number of bills. And if they want to go negative, they're going to find something that you voted on, that there was something in that bill that was not as important, or and
amplify it.
Yeah.
Rick brought something up at the last show we did, where you have the agendas of certain people coming into local elections, because the local elections affect the everyday person out there. And that's where you have to be careful. Why did they spend so much money in the current election with
well, when we were on the show, we talked about, I think it was county council. There was a county council race, and then what ended up happening was, make a long story, most of the Democrats won, which, not taking anything away from those individuals, all good individuals, but after the election, you found out that the party put a lot of money behind them. And I do hate the party politics. I like to keep it away as much as possible, especially when it comes to the government. But you have to ask the question is what's the party's intention of putting so much money into candidates for the county? Because to me, it says like, all right, then the county these individuals from the party want something. And you always have to follow the money. And what's the agenda behind it? Why? What are they looking for?
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because they do have an effect on the way we live, okay? In terms of when you're saying you're running for office, I applaud anyone who is running for office today. Some people who want to do their best, okay, and they know the opposite party has an agenda, they'll do anything to destroy that person and take little things out of context and just blow them out of proportion. And so decent people say, what do I need this aggravation for? It's only the strong people, strong-willed people that continue on. Am I correct in saying that?
Well, there's a lot of people that, and I'm not, it takes a lot of, I don't know whether you want to call it courage, or I hear a lot of people talk about they're going to run, but to put your name on the ballot, and Rick can tell you this, put your name on the ballot, you're throwing it out there. And it's a lot of work, and it's you got to work hard, you got to relate to the people, and you got to, the environment, the political environment today is just crazy. It's something like I have never seen in my 40 years of public service.
And I think, one thing I've noticed in the recent past here, and probably it's changed a lot, I mean, you have a lot of flyers going out, we've talked about. Now you have, obviously, social media to deal with. You have, all of a sudden, you're getting text on your phone about candidates. So the campaigns have changed a lot now as compared to before. And let's be honest, I mean, you get a text and you get a handful of information. obviously they're trying to steer you. That's the game of politics. But that's where the voters, I think, need to be smart enough to say, all right, yes, but what else is behind it? Or if they're going to spend so much on this, what there's an old saying, don't throw stones if you live in a glass house. And a lot of people live in glass houses. So you have to look at both candidates fairly.
Jerry, in your experience, when you're, a senior in life and you're talking to a lot of people that you meet, and, I know I get the response up here, and they just scratch their head and say, how do we get this way? How do we, and you just wonder, we let the radicals take over. And that's the sad part. We allowed the radicals, and are still allowing them today, to take over our country.
Yep. And it's just, the older you get and the longer you've been around, you sit back and, you just can't, I just can't figure out why we got to where we got to. I mean, both parties in some situations have dug their heels in. And if you want to go to Harrisburg and you want to, and you want to burn the place down and you want to cause all kinds of havoc, you can do that. But if you want to get something done, you got to compromise. Now, I will say this: pro-life, there's nothing to compromise. I am pro-life, and guns, I'm fine. There's other issues that, I voted against medical marijuana. It's here. We're going to have recreational marijuana, which I think is bad. But there's got to be, even on the life issue, there's got to be some compromise. I'm a guy, and it's easy for me to say this now, and I'm a man, but I say life of the mother. But realistically, if you run with life of the mother, if you don't include rape and incest, you're not going to get anything. I mean, would you rather pass legislation that will save 2 million babies, or would you dig your heels in and say, it's got to be my way or the highway, and you get nothing done? I mean, that you can't give up your principles. You can't. I know where you're at on that issue. You know where I'm at on that issue. I always said I would fall on the sword for that issue.
You brought up some points that people do not see on your election board right now. Okay, there's a lot of things that you brought up. Would you care to discuss some of the things in developing, so people have a behind the scenes look at what you're doing?
So I recently was appointed to the Luzerne County Election Board. Again, someone who's been involved in politics many years. We talk about it much. Jerry was on the same on a board as well in Schuylkill County before, so he understands this. And so the role I'm taking on, which again I'd love to come on your show and help to educate the public and be as independent as I can, is the fact of trying to understand really how the voter process works, to make sure that it's legitimate, to make sure there's integrity in it. And there are a lot of things the public doesn't really understand. They just think, well, I'm going to go get my ballot, put it in, and that's it. And the goal is to make it as smooth as possible. But a couple things. Number one, the public has the responsibility of making sure they do things right. I mean, me taking on this role, I get to spend a lot of time up there looking at ballots eventually after the election to make sure they're correct. If the ballot comes in and it says you got to put circles in it with blue ink, you got to do that. You don't check it off. You don't put a cross on, because it could get thrown out, because those are the rules. One of the things that is a controversial point here in the county, which are the ballot boxes, which were put in over COVID. It's something that the county has 5 or 6 boxes around the county, and they're still there. And I'm not a big supporter of it, but it is what it is. The point of it is, it's the benefit could be to offer more flexibility for voters to get their vote in. But there is something what's called ballot harvesting, which is illegal, meaning for people to go out, grab other people's ballots, mark them in, and then put them in a box. That's illegal. So those are things that, beyond the board, there's 5 of us. watch over, make sure that things go smoothly, make sure that if a machine goes down in a borough, that there's a backup plan, that it gets in there, and people have the right to vote. The key here, in my view of this, is to make sure that elections go smoothly, people trust the elections, that we educate the public on elections as much as possible, and again, to educate them on what they're supposed to do. And that's really the goal here.
What happened to the times when we would go in on election day and vote, and that was it? You had to go and vote in election day. Now they have all these different things, ballots, this, mail-in, etc., where there could be a lot of ballot harvesting and things that are not proper. Well, you know, we used to be able to call an election, remember, many years ago, because you go in and you vote. Now there's absentee votes, which I understand, and that's perfectly. But we've allowed a lot of things to happen that shouldn't have happened, in my opinion.
Let me start this, and I know Jerry could touch upon it in Schuylkill County. So the ballot boxes came along with COVID. They wanted to create an opportunity for people to vote without having to go into a place, and we all know what took place at COVID. After COVID, some counties decided to get rid of the boxes, which Schuylkill County is one. Luzerne County still has the boxes. Again, I'm not a fan of it. I'm still learning. I've only been on this board a few months, and I'm paying very much attention to it. But that just goes to show, and I think the point of this is that each county is different. The state doesn't tell every county, here's the way you're supposed to do it. And this is the conversation Jerry and I had earlier, was the fact that you go county to county, there's different rules, and it all depends on how they go. I mean, Jerry?
Yeah, we got to get our stuff together, because I can speak as a Republican, and I can tell you that it comes back to, so we now, and I'm a guy who says, number one, it's election day. Number two, I have never in my lifetime seen anyone who applied for an absentee ballot that was refused an absentee ballot. And we always had drop boxes. You know what they're called? Mailboxes. Put a stamp on it and mail it in. And, but having said that, Sam, mail-in ballots are here. We Republicans, included me, we have fought and fought and fought this mail-in, these mail-in ballots. Guess what? It's here. And the Democrats are kicking our butt because they're out there working hard to get people to vote mail-in. And we got to stop fighting about it, and we got to accept the fact that it's here. We don't like it, it's here. We got to work with it.
Folks, I'm talking to Jerry Knowles and Rick Morelli. Charles McAwee is on assignment in Washington, D.C., as well as Mike DeCosmo. We missed him, but we'll come back right after this. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, folks. 24/7 SSPTV.com. We're here to serve you. My email, sam@ssptv.com. Pre-election show, as we like to discuss, bring a lot of interesting things up. Remember, you could always email me, let me know what your thoughts are. Joining me today is former state representative Jerry Knowles. Been there for 14 years, and of course, one of our regulars, Rick Morelli, is here. And Rick, being on the election board, you have as you said, trying to get people together. If someone would Google the Republican Party platform and would Google the Democrat Party platform, okay? And so if you look at the platform of what they stand for, it's like joining a club. This club says we do this, we do that. So when you join the Republican Party, this is what you're adhering to, okay? So that's sometimes, if you look at the different platforms, and there, as you said, Jerry, there's a lot of great Democrats out there, okay? There are a lot of great Democrats. Unfortunately, we have radicals on both sides. But my point is, when you take that agenda and it starts filtering down, as you alluded to, they have parts of that agenda. And that's the thing that you get concerned about. Then you start worrying about, why do they have all these drop-off boxes? Why, are they so many immigrants, illegal people coming into the? You start wondering about these things. Am I correct? You know where I'm going here?
Yeah, I totally get it. I mean, first of all, listen, if you go on both parties and you see 10 different things what they stand for, you look to say, am I this, and this? That should tell you if you're Republican or Democrat. But
period.
But some people are like, well, I don't like that guy. Listen, people could vote however they want. That's number one. But there are hidden agendas behind, I think, parties. Oh, and I'll say parties again. Republicans aren't straight and narrow. There's some radical Republicans to the far right, and there's some radical Democrats to the far left. And I think the majority of people are kind of in the middle, and like Jerry said, compromise. You're not going to always get everything, and that's what I think makes our government, our country great. It's the radicals, in my opinion, on both sides that kind of get in the way. And I've always been one to say, don't let the minority control the majority. That's where I think the challenges come, because we're very passionate people. We want to hear other people what they say, but we give in too much on both sides. And I think that's where the challenges become, where you keep giving in, and then all of a sudden you look, where do we go? And I'm talking in general here.
Voter ID. Simple thing. You want to go vote? Here's my voter ID. And I don't know why there's such a big... Why are they fighting against that, Jerry?
I don't have any idea. I mean, when you think of the things, when you go to the bank, you need to have an ID.
Yeah.
When you go to the pharmacy, you need to have an ID. What I think is so strange is that the Democrats, some of them are opposed to voter ID. Well, I think it's kind of strange, because at their last convention, guess what you had to wear? You had to have a vote, you had to have an ID to get onto the floor. Why do they need an ID to get onto the floor, but you can go and vote?
So you wonder, again, why? Such simple things that, you're talking about putting people in office and that are going to control your life, such as we have this poor lady who had to sell her house to pay for her medication, to pay for food, to pay for so many things. But yet you do have people coming in who are totally illegal, and God bless them, but they're giving them everything under the sun. I just can't understand this. I wish someone could tell. And it's like, well, yes, we want to help immigrants. There's no question about that. But we don't know who we are, who they're coming
So
in.
Again, to your point, why would they not want to do that? Well, there's an agenda there. They want more
Sure,
votes. They want more votes.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that, again, I'm only 3 months into this, that I'm strongly looking into, and will be, the fact that it has to be very simple. You want to vote, you got to prove that's you. That's it. You got to prove it's you. If you're not here legally, if not,
What's
you got to
so
do that.
difficult about that?
Listen, when I had to sign my son up for the school district, remember I was on the school board years ago, I had to get 3 different forms of ID, get him in there. And then there's still kids coming into the school district who don't have to do that. That's not the school board's problem. It's the state problem. That's the state coming down on the school district. But it's not fair. And that's where I think, listen, it comes down to, no one wants someone not to vote. Vote, we're telling you. Just make sure you show the right ID, you're legal to vote, and that's it.
One of the things, Sam, and Rick had touched on it, it's a strange situation. The state, the Department of State, the Bureau of Elections, they basically, they set up some of the rules and this and that and the other thing, but yet each election bureau in every county does things their way. I remember when I ran the one time, I had a question, and I called down to the Department of State. And they said, well, you really should talk to your local election bureau. I said, well, what do you mean? Well, because they may do it this way, or they may do it that way. I mean, our machines, they have machines. You guys have machines. In Schuylkill County, we get a piece of paper, we darken in who we're voting for, and then we put it into the scanner.
It's just, I don't understand it. It's crazy. We're allowing it to happen, and we just have to put a close eye on it. And when you try to question these things. You know, you're called every name under the sun. And why, here again, why do we allow these people, these radicals, take it over?
People have to pay attention. Again, being on this board, they're public meetings, they're streamed live. People have to go to meetings. They can voice. If they have issues, let them come, express it. But they got to, there's no reason why you can't get involved throughout the process. Don't wait till after something goes wrong and it says, oh, just blame somebody. You could make something happen by going to meetings and voicing your concerns.
Sam, when you talk about voter ID, what you say, how does it happen? Well, it happens this way. You know, if you talk to the Democrats, they say that we are requiring people to show IDs, and we're trying to discourage people from voting. The poor people can't afford to buy an identification, but they're saying that we just want to get our people out there to vote, and by requiring a voter ID, that they're at a disadvantage. That a lot of their people don't have ID.
Do you think there's voter fraud in the country?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think there's voter fraud in the country. Yes, I think that I just don't think it's as bad as what. I was the chairman of the board of election in Schuylkill County when the commissioners were running, and I can tell you this much: we did things by the rules, and I think that most of the other counties, Luzerne County, Lackawanna County, Carbon County, I know the people that run those elections, and I think that they do a good job.
Yeah. Do you think, Rick, there's in the country there's voter fraud?
I think I don't have any proof. Right now I focus on Luzerne County, and I could tell you between the board, between the bureau, with Romilda on top of it, that people should feel that their votes are safe. Do I think in the country there are places where it's not as tight? I'd have to believe that. I don't have any proof. But do I think that people want to manipulate a system? Yeah, there's no question in my mind they would love to do it. I think that being 2024 with technology, these machines, it should be harder. But the more you put out boxes, the more, listen, it's nice to say you want to give more options, but the more options you give to vote, the more chances there are for corruption or for problems. And Jerry said earlier, Election Day is Election Day. It's a day to go out and vote. And that's what's changing right now. In
the 29th senatorial district, we have Dave Argel, who is running unopposed, and John Zugaret, I guess, who is a Whitehaven councilman, will be facing Argel in November. And of course, you have the Bob Casey McCormick. Here again, when you're looking at Casey and McCormick, when you talk to some people, they say, well, Casey has a popular name. Okay, that's fine, but is Casey doing what he should be doing? I'm just throwing this out. Will McCormick do what they have to be doing? So here again, you're looking at individuals, and Jerry, you were when you ran and you ran again, they put you in because you did a good job. If you weren't doing a good job, they wouldn't put you in, okay? But sometimes, don't vote for Jerry Knowles because he's a nice guy, because everyone knows Jerry Knowles. Vote for Jerry because he's qualified for the job.
Well, Sam, Bob Casey that we're talking about now is not the Robert Casey. He's got to be rolling over.
Oh, his father's doing flips all over the place. There's no question about it. I'm sorry, but it's just sad.
His father was a class act.
Yeah, his father certainly was. And the Casey family, the fine people. But it's just, when you see what's happening in the country, why it's happening, I understand it. We'll take a break. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, folks. Our pre-election show discussing a number of things. There's so many things, my friends. Just don't give up hope. Make sure you look at who the candidates are, whether they're Democrats, Republicans, or whatever. Just keep the radicals out. They're killing our country. Jerry Knowles joins me today on the show. Jerry was in the state legislature for 14 years, and of course, the regular on our panel, Rick Morelli. Rick, you're on the study commission. Why is the Luzerne County Government Study Commission so important for us to know who's on it?
Well, the government is very important, but I think the most important question is, why is the study commission question on? So I'm going to keep this really simple. The question is, do you think the government's doing a good job, or should it change again? We changed the government 12 years ago. They formed the study commission I was on. We put it out there, we changed it, and you have a 11-member council that now runs it with hired manager, Ramilda Mokomo, who's the manager right now. And, you know, you look at last 10 years, the debt has decreased from 500 million to less than, so like 200 million. There's no corruption. But people always want better. People always want better. So they decide, let's put the question on the ballot to say, should we look at it and reevaluate it? So the questions on the ballot again is, should they create a study commission again, and there's 70 people running. So if it passes, of these 17 individuals, 7 will be elected to study the commission, study the government, make recommendations, and then put it out. I mean, there's a chance it could go back to the 3 commissioners. It could be an elected manager. There could be so many different things. The public really has to pay attention to it. It's important. I mean, county government's in the front of the paper every single day. You're talking contracts, you're talking unions, you're talking legalities. There's so many different things, the jail, the prison system, everything. So I personally think the government's working pretty well. Obviously, it's not perfect, but if you think you're going to put another government being perfect, it's not. There's no perfect government. But that's a decision the public's going to have to decide on here on this election. And I know we're running out of time, and I'll just kind of keep it simple and leave it at that.
Well, it's, you know, I wasn't a firm believer when it first started. And then when we put Charlie Pedri in there, Dave Pedri in there, we saw a tremendous professionalism, you know, and it was great. And I became a believer in saying, you know, this was a good move, because Dave Pedri did a great job and Ramilda is doing a fabulous job. Yep. You always try to fine tune and try to see where we could do that. You're in Schuylkill County, the commissioners seem to be working well, right?
Well, we've got our problems, but we won't get into that. We can have 2 shows on that. But
everybody has problems.
Yeah. But we have 3 members of the board. We have the chairman, the vice chairman, and then the minority commissioner. There's 1 Democrat, 2 Republicans, and then there is an appointed county administrator, and he's appointed by the commissioners.
Are you happy with the county commissioners?
There were efforts during my period of time that they were talking about going to a county council as opposed to commissioners, but it never really got anywhere. You know, I think for the most part that, you know, we've done okay in Schuylkill County. And
I think it could work. Jerry was on it. He's a good guy. There have been many good commissioners, if you could get that. My biggest problem with this commissioner setup is, and you can talk about it, is you have row offices. These row offices are independent little areas. No one tells them what to do other than controlling their budget, right? And that to me is a hole in the system. That's where gaps take place. And when there's gaps, there's challenges. And again, the commissioner's form of government has been in place over 200 years. It's an old form of government. So again, not saying it can't work if you have the right people, but that's where there could be some challenges.
Funny story, Sam. Do you remember Bud Unks?
Yes.
Bud Unks was a very dear friend of mine, and we were talking one time about government should be run like a business. And I won't use the expletives, but Bud said, "How can you be so stupid?" I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Look, there's a reason the 3 commissioners, you guys are watching each other to make sure everybody's doing things right. And then you got a controller watching, and you got a prothonotary. There's a reason for all that, so that you guys are watching each other, that nobody's stealing the money." And I thought that was, it's a very, government is much different than business.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's you just hope and pray that you get the right people in, because as we see what's happening in this country today, we're being lied to every day. that breaks my heart, Jerry. I've been in this business for so many, and I see how the liberal press just lies to people and suppresses the things that they really should be talking about. And it's fact. I mean, so it's just sad. I feel so sorry for my friends who are seniors out there that have worked all their lives to try to enjoy a better part of their retirement, and some of them can even give up they have to continue to work just to pay their bills. And what does the government do? They slap them in the face instead of saying, you know, this is it. It's just so sad.
Sam, I want to thank Rick, and I want to thank you for inviting me to be here. It's always a pleasure. And thank you for what you do for our community.
I appreciate it.
Pleasure, as always, Sam, as well as being with Jerry. Thank you.
We missed Charles. We missed.
Yes.
We'll get him on the next show. Don't forget to vote, my friends. We'll see you next time.